Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I take school seriously because I'm paying for my own tuition by working two part-time jobs. When Professor Martinez announced our final project would be worth 40% of our grade and had to be done in pairs, I knew I needed to make it count. The assignment was brutal, a 20-page research paper on sustainable energy solutions, plus a 15-minute presentation with visual aids. We had exactly 3 weeks to complete everything. When the professor randomly paired us up, I got matched with this guy from the back row, who I had seen maybe twice all semester. He seemed nice enough when we briefly introduced ourselves after class. My partner said the project looked doable and offered to give me his number. I told him I was thinking we could meet that weekend to divide up the work and set some deadlines. He agreed it sounded like a good plan. That was Thursday. I texted him Friday evening with some initial ideas and asked when he was free to meet. No response. I figured maybe he was busy with work or had plans, so I waited until Sunday and sent another message suggesting we meet at the library Monday after our shared class. Still nothing. By Tuesday, I was starting to worry. This wasn't just about my grade anymore, this was about my entire semester. I had a 3.8 GPA that I'd worked my butt off to maintain, and I wasn't about to let some random classmate tank it because he couldn't be bothered to reply to a text. I approached him after class on Tuesday and asked if he'd gotten my messages about the project. He apologized and said he'd been super busy with work stuff. I told him it was no problem and asked when he could meet to go over everything. He promised to text me later that day. He never did. Wednesday came and went. Thursday too. By Friday, I'd sent 4 more messages with increasingly detailed outlines of what needed to be done, hoping that maybe seeing the scope of work would motivate him to respond. I even broke down exactly which sections each of us could handle and created a shared document with research links. Nothing. Not even a thumbs up emoji. The weekend hit and I made a decision. I wasn't going to fail because someone else couldn't manage basic communication. I went to the library Saturday morning and dove into the research. Solar panel efficiency studies, wind farm economics, hydroelectric environmental impact assessments. I read everything I could get my hands on. By Sunday night, I had a solid outline and had already written the introduction and literature review sections. I updated our shared document and sent him another message telling him I'd made good progress on the research and really needed to hear from him about which sections he wanted to handle. I reminded him we only had 2 weeks left. Monday morning, still nothing. I saw him in class sitting in his usual spot scrolling through his phone like he didn't have a care in the world. When class ended, I tried one more time and told him we seriously needed to talk about this project. He acknowledged that he knew and said things had been crazy. He promised to get back to me that night. That night never came. By the end of the second week, I'd written 12 pages and created half the presentation slides. I'd spent every free moment I had on this project turning down shifts at work and missing out on sleep. My friends kept asking why I looked so stressed, and I felt embarrassed explaining that my project partner had basically ghosted me. I sent one final message on the Sunday night before our final week. I told him this was my last attempt to reach him. I explained that the project was due Friday and I'd done most of the work already, but I needed to know if he was planning to contribute anything at all. I begged him to please respond. Silence. That week I finished everything. I wrote the remaining 8 pages, completed all the citations, designed the rest of the presentation slides, and practiced my talking points until I could deliver them in my sleep. I even created backup slides in case the technology failed during our presentation. By Thursday night, I had a complete project that I was genuinely proud of. The research was thorough, the arguments were solid, and the presentation looked professional. I'd put in probably 60 hours of work over 3 weeks, but there was one problem staring me in the face. The title page still had both our names on it. I sat at my desk, cursor hovering over his name. This person who hadn't responded to a single message, who hadn't contributed a single sentence, who had left me to carry the entire weight of this project alone while he did whatever was apparently more important than his education. Why should he get credit for work he didn't do? Why should his GPA benefit from my sleepless nights and sacrificed work shifts? Why should he get to slide by while I'd stressed myself out for 3 weeks straight? I deleted his name, saved the file, uploaded it to the course portal at 11:47 p.m., 13 minutes before the deadline. The next week, grades were posted. I got an A-. The professor noted that while the work was excellent, presenting alone when it was supposed to be a pair project had affected my presentation score slightly. I was fine with that. I'd rather take a small hit for presenting solo than share credit with someone who'd contributed nothing. 2 days later, my phone buzzed with a text from my former partner. He asked why his name wasn't on the project and said he'd just checked and his grade showed 0 for the assignment. I stared at the message for a long moment. After 3 weeks of being ignored, after all those unanswered texts and broken promises to get back to me, now he wanted to talk. I didn't respond. He texted again an hour later, saying this was seriously messed up and that we were supposed to work together on this. And again that evening claiming I couldn't just take his name off without telling him and that he was planning to help with the final parts. I blocked his number. The semester ended and I maintained my GPA. I heard through a classmate that my former partner had to take an incomplete in the course and would need to make up the work over the summer. I moved into this place about 8 months ago after my divorce was finalized. My ex-wife got the house and I got the debt, so a cheap apartment was pretty much my only option. The building is old, probably from the 70s, and you can tell. The walls are so thin that I can hear my upstairs neighbor's alarm clock every morning. I can hear the woman across the hall talking on the phone. I can even hear someone's microwave beeping 2 units down when they heat up their lunch. But you know what? I adapted. I bought a white noise machine. I wear earplugs when I sleep. I keep my own noise down because I figured everyone else was dealing with the same paper-thin walls. This guy moved in about 3 months after me. From day one, he made it clear that he either didn't understand or didn't care about the noise situation. But the worst part wasn't his loud music or his phone calls. It was his door. Every single morning at exactly 5 in the morning, this man would leave for work. And every single morning, he would slam his door so hard that my entire wall would shake. Not just close it firmly, not just pull it shut with a little too much force. No, this guy would grab that door handle and throw his entire body weight into slamming it shut like he was trying to break it off its hinges. The first few times it happened, I figured it was an accident. Maybe he was running late. Maybe he didn't realize how loud it was. But after 2 weeks of this 5 a.m. wake-up call, I started to think it might be intentional. The worst part was that sometimes he'd slam it twice. He'd slam it once, then apparently remember he forgot his keys or his phone or whatever, go back inside, then slam it again 2 minutes later. Bonus wake-up call for me. I'm not a morning person. I work from home doing freelance graphic design, which means I usually stay up until midnight or later working on projects. Being jolted awake at 5 in the morning by what sounds like someone throwing a bowling ball at my wall was starting to mess with my sleep schedule seriously. After about a month of this, I decided to say something. I'm not confrontational by nature, especially after everything I went through with my ex-wife, but I figured a polite conversation might solve the problem. One morning I heard him coming down the hallway, so I quickly got dressed and stepped outside to catch him. He was this big guy, probably in his 40s, wearing a construction vest and work boots. I introduced myself as his next-door neighbor and politely asked if he could try to be a little quieter with his door in the mornings. I explained that the walls were pretty thin and that it woke me up every day at 5. He just looked at me for a second, then started laughing. He told me it was just a door and that I should relax. When I tried to explain that it was really loud and that I work late most nights, he cut me off and said it wasn't his problem. Then he just walked away. I stood there for a minute, kind of stunned. I mean, I wasn't asking him to tiptoe around or anything. Just maybe don't slam the door so hard that it sounds like he's trying to knock down the building. That night, I sat there thinking about it. The more I thought about his attitude, the more annoyed I got. He clearly didn't care about being considerate, so why should I? I remembered I had my old electric keyboard in the closet. I used to play piano when I was younger, took lessons for about 6 years before I quit in high school. I hadn't touched it in years, but it still worked. I dragged it out and set it up right against the wall we shared. I plugged it in and started scrolling through all the different instrument settings: organ, harpsichord, electric guitar, drums. I settled on the organ setting because it was by far the loudest and most obnoxious. Around 11 that night, when the building was completely quiet, I sat down and started playing. Well, I use the term playing loosely. I picked chopsticks because it's simple and repetitive and absolutely annoying when played badly. And trust me, I played it badly. I hadn't played piano in over a decade, so my timing was off. I kept hitting wrong keys, and I played it way too loud. It sounded like a kid having a temper tantrum on a keyboard. Perfect. I played for about 20 minutes, then packed it up and went to bed. The next morning, right on schedule, his door slammed at 5 a.m. So that night, I got the keyboard out again. More terrible chopsticks at 11 p.m. I did this for 3 nights straight. Terrible, loud, off-key chopsticks every night at 11. By the third night, I was starting to remember some of the basics, but I made sure to keep playing it badly. On the fourth morning, something amazing happened. 5 a.m. came and went. No door slam. I actually woke up naturally around 7, which felt like a miracle. I wondered if maybe he'd called in sick or something, but I heard him moving around in his apartment, so he was definitely home. The next morning, same thing. No door slam. I heard him leave around the same time, but apparently he'd figured out how to close his door like a normal human being. It's been over a week now, and every morning has been blissfully quiet. No more 5 a.m. wake-up calls, no more wall-shaking slams. Just peaceful silence. I haven't had to get the keyboard out since that third night. Apparently, 3 nights of terrible organ music at 11 p.m. was enough to teach him about noise courtesy. I've actually started playing the keyboard again for real. Turns out I remember more than I thought I did. I've been practicing during normal hours, of course, but it's nice to have a hobby again. I'm a single dad raising my 13-year-old son. His mom passed away 3 years ago from cancer, so it's just been the two of us figuring things out together. My son has always been a good kid, maybe a bit quiet and reserved, but he's got a solid group of friends who've really helped him through the tough times. These kids have been through everything together, they supported each other when his mom was sick, and they've been inseparable ever since. For the past few years, we've made it a tradition to go to the big 4th of July celebration at our local park. It's one of those community events where families bring picnics, kids run around, and everyone watches the official fireworks show at sunset. My son and his 4 friends always pool their allowances together to buy some smaller fireworks, sparklers, Roman candles, nothing too crazy. They're responsible kids, and I always supervise when they're using them. This year started out great. The boys had saved up about $40 between them and bought a decent collection of safe fireworks from the stand near the park entrance. They found a good spot away from the crowds where they could safely light them off before the main show started. I was sitting on a blanket nearby, keeping an eye on them while they took turns with the sparklers and small fountains. That's when she showed up. This Karen walked over with her kid trailing behind her. Her son looked to be about the same age as my boy, maybe a year younger. Right away, I could tell this lady was trouble. She started by telling the boys that her son wanted to use some fireworks too. My son politely explained that they had bought these themselves and suggested she could get some at the stand near the entrance. But Karen wasn't having it. She insisted that they shouldn't have to buy more when the boys clearly had plenty to share. I was about to get up and intervene, but my son handled it well. He told her they had saved up their allowances for these fireworks and had been planning this for weeks. Her kid started whining to his mom about how she had promised him fireworks today, and Karen assured him they would get some by making these boys share with them. One of the friends spoke up and told her they weren't sharing because they had bought the fireworks fair and square. That's when Karen's whole demeanor changed. She started getting aggressive. She called the boys little brats and demanded they hand over the fireworks right now. My son respectfully declined and asked her to please leave them alone. I stood up at this point, ready to step in, but what happened next caught everyone off guard. Karen actually lunged forward and tried to grab the bag of fireworks from my son's hands. The boys all stepped back, but she managed to snatch a few Roman candles from the bag. She declared that if they wouldn't share, then nobody would get to have fun. Before anyone could react, she lit one of the Roman candles and pointed it directly at my son. The first colorful ball shot out and barely missed his head by inches. My son yelled that she was shooting at them and told everyone to run. The boys scattered in different directions. Karen kept firing the Roman candle, actually aiming at them as they ran. I started running toward her, screaming for her to stop, but she lit another one. Her own kid was crying and begging her to stop, but she ignored him completely. 3 of the boys, including my son, kept running toward the main crowd to get help. But 2 of his friends, these brave kids, decided they'd had enough. Instead of running away, they suddenly changed direction and started running straight toward Karen in zigzag patterns to avoid the fireworks she was shooting at them. The 2 boys shouted that they had to stop her before she hurt someone. These kids, probably weighing 90 pounds each soaking wet, ran straight at this grown woman, who was literally firing explosive devices at children. They hit her from both sides at the same time, tackling her to the ground with everything they had. The Roman candle flew out of her hands and landed harmlessly in the grass. Karen was screaming and cursing at these kids, trying to push them off her. That's when my son came running back with 2 security guards from the event. The first security guard asked what was going on. My son quickly explained that the lady had been shooting fireworks at them after trying to steal their stuff. Karen immediately started yelling that these brats had attacked her and she wanted them arrested. The second security guard mentioned that witnesses had seen her firing Roman candles at the children. Karen defended herself by saying the boys wouldn't share their fireworks with her son. The first guard asked her if that's why she decided to shoot fireworks at them. Multiple people had seen what happened and were backing up the boys' story. Karen's own son was crying and told the security guards that his mom had been shooting the fireworks at the other kids. The security guards called the police, and when they arrived, they took statements from everyone. The officers were not happy when they heard what had happened. One officer explained to Karen that she had fired explosive devices at minors, which was assault with a dangerous weapon. Karen protested that they were just fireworks, and it wasn't like she had shot them with a gun. The officer replied that Roman candles could cause serious injuries and she could have blinded one of the children. Karen insisted the whole situation was ridiculous and that she wanted to press charges against the boys for tackling her. The officer told her that she had been assaulting children with fireworks, so they were defending themselves and others. Karen kept insisting that she was the victim, that the boys should have shared their fireworks, and that she had every right to take them. She showed zero remorse for literally shooting explosive devices at children. In the end, Karen was arrested for assault on minors and reckless endangerment. Her son went home with his father, who showed up looking mortified by his ex-wife's behavior. Apparently, this wasn't her first incident involving entitled behavior and poor judgment. The 2 boys who tackled her became absolute legends among their friend group. The whole thing could have been much worse if they hadn't been brave enough to stop her. My son was shaken up but proud of his friends for having his back. We did end up staying for the official fireworks show, and the boys used the rest of their fireworks without any further incidents. The security guards even came by to check on them and made sure they felt safe. Thank God for those 2 brave boys who stopped her before someone got seriously hurt. I'm a 48-year-old woman with 2 kids. My son is 25 and married to his wife, who I'll call Karen. My daughter is 20 and still lives at home while she's in college. Karen came into our lives about 3 years ago when she and my son started dating. From what my son told me, Karen had a rough childhood. Her mother abandoned her when she was around 8, and she ended up bouncing around foster homes until she aged out of the system. I felt sorry for her at first. I really did. Nobody deserves to go through that kind of abandonment as a kid, but here's where things started going wrong. From the very first time I met her, Karen has been completely unable to respect any boundaries I set. And trust me, I've tried to be patient because I understand she's dealing with her own trauma. She's been seeing a therapist, which is great. But that doesn't give her the right to steamroll over everyone else. The biggest issue is that she refuses to call me by my actual name. She only calls me mom and has done this since day one. Every single time she does it, I correct her and ask her to use my name instead. I'm not comfortable being called mom by someone who isn't my child, and I've explained this to her countless times, but she just smiles and says she understands, then turns around and does it again the next time we talk. Then there are the inappropriate questions. Karen is obsessed with the fact that I'm not close to my own mother. My mother was emotionally abusive when I was growing up, and I made the decision years ago to have minimal contact with her for my own mental health. But Karen cannot let this go. She constantly tells me that my mother is still my mom, and that family is supposed to stick together no matter what. When I tell her this isn't something I wanted to discuss, she insists that I just need to forgive my mother. She says she will give anything to have her mom back, and here I am throwing mine away. I remind her that my situation is different and I need her to drop this topic. But she keeps pushing, telling me I don't understand how lucky I am to still have my mother. This conversation has happened at least a dozen times in various forms. I've spoken to my son about it, and he always asks me to be patient with her because of her background. I've talked to Karen directly multiple times, asking her to respect my boundaries, and she always promises she will. But then she goes right back to doing the same things. Last month, my daughter started having some medical issues. She needs to see a specialist who's located a few states away, so we planned a weekend trip to get her the care she needs. My daughter hasn't told the rest of the family about her health problems yet because she wants to have a clearer picture of what's going on before she explains everything to everyone. I completely respect her decision on this. Somehow Karen found out about our trip. I still don't know how because we were being pretty quiet about it, but sure enough, my phone rang on a Tuesday evening. Karen called me and started asking why she wasn't invited on the trip she heard my daughter and I were taking. I told her it wasn't a social trip but important business we needed to take care of. She accused me of lying and insisted she knew it was just a mother-daughter bonding trip. I explained again that it wasn't a fun trip and wasn't something she needed to be involved in. She got upset and said it wasn't fair because she was my daughter too and deserved to be included in mother-daughter trips. I reminded her that she wasn't my daughter but my son's wife, and this wasn't a leisure trip anyway. She insisted that yes, she was my daughter now because I was her mom, and moms don't exclude their kids from family trips. I told her again that I wasn't comfortable with her calling me mom. She kept arguing that I was her mom and she needed to come on this trip because it wasn't fair to leave her out when I was doing mother-daughter activities. At this point, I was getting really frustrated because she wasn't listening to anything I was saying. I tried one more time to explain that this wasn't a mother-daughter bonding trip and we had important business to handle. She said she didn't believe me and accused me of making excuses because I didn't want her there. Then she announced that she was coming anyway because she was my daughter and had just as much right to be there as my actual daughter did. I told her no, she absolutely did not have the right to insert herself into this trip. She insisted that yes, she did because she was my kid now, and I couldn't just exclude her from family activities. She declared that she was coming whether I liked it or not. That's when I completely lost it. I've been dealing with this boundary stomping behavior for 3 years, and I was done. I told her to listen to me very carefully. I said I would never be her mother, and just because she married my son didn't make me her parent. I made it clear that I was not her mom, would never be her mom, and she needed to leave me alone about this trip. I told her that even if this was a mother-daughter trip, which it wasn't, she still wouldn't be invited because she wasn't my kid. Then I hung up on her. Within an hour, my son was calling me, absolutely furious. He asked what the hell was wrong with me and said Karen was crying because I had completely destroyed her. I told him I had simply told her the truth because I was tired of her ignoring my boundaries. He called me a huge jerk for saying that to her and said she'd been through enough without me rejecting her like this. I explained that I wasn't rejecting her, but setting boundaries that she refused to respect. He demanded that I apologize and invite her on the trip because she was family now. I refused to apologize for telling the truth and made it clear she definitely wasn't coming on this trip. He accused me of being cruel and said she just wanted to feel like she belonged somewhere. The whole thing blew up from there. Word spread through the family, and now everyone has an opinion about what happened. Some people think I was too harsh, others think Karen was out of line. My daughter is catching flack too, which is making everything worse because she's already stressed about her medical situation and doesn't want to explain why we're really taking this trip. My sister called me yesterday to tell me I should apologize. She admitted that Karen can be a lot but said I really hurt her feelings. I pointed out that Karen had hurt my feelings for 3 years by ignoring everything I asked of her. My sister said that Karen had such a hard life and asked if I couldn't just be the bigger person. I told her that being the bigger person didn't mean letting someone walk all over me. My brother, on the other hand, thinks I did the right thing. He said I'd been more than patient with her and that everyone has limits. I told him I felt like I was going crazy with everyone telling me I was wrong. He assured me that I wasn't wrong and that Karen needed to hear it. Even my own mother called to give her opinion, which was rich considering she's part of the reason I have such strong boundaries in the first place. She said she heard about my little tantrum with Karen. I corrected her that it wasn't a tantrum, but me setting boundaries. She called me stubborn and said that Karen just wanted to feel loved. When I asked if I was supposed to sacrifice my own comfort to make Karen feel better, she said yes. That's what family does. This is exactly the kind of thinking that made me distance myself from my mother in the first place. The trip is this weekend and I'm not backing down. My daughter needs medical care, and that's more important than Karen's feelings about not being included in something that was never about her to begin with. I'm tired of everyone expecting me to set myself on fire to keep Karen warm. But here's the thing that really gets me. After everything that happened, Karen actually showed up at my house yesterday uninvited. She apologized for our fight and said she just wanted us to work things out. I reminded her that I had asked her not to call me mom. She said she knew, but it felt natural to her because I was the closest thing she had to a mother figure. I told her I understood that, but I had asked her repeatedly to respect this boundary. She asked if we could please just forget about the fight and move forward, promising she would try to do better. I asked if she would actually respect my boundaries this time. She assured me that of course she would and promised she would call me by my name from now on. I wanted to believe her, but given her track record, I wasn't holding my breath. This morning she texted me saying good morning and calling me mom again, then apologizing for yesterday. So yeah, she lasted exactly 12 hours before breaking her promise again. I'm taking my daughter on this trip, and I'm not apologizing for protecting our privacy and my boundaries. Karen can be upset about it all she wants, but I'm done enabling her behavior. If that makes me the bad guy in everyone else's eyes, so be it. The specialist appointment went well, by the way. My daughter got the answers she needed, and we're moving forward with a treatment plan. She's finally ready to tell the family what's been going on, which should hopefully take some of the heat off both of us. I'm hard of hearing and have been since birth. My parents made sure I learned both spoken English and American Sign Language early on. I can handle most situations well, but sign language is still my most comfortable way to communicate, especially in noisy places or when I'm tired. I'm 22 now and work part-time at a local bookstore while finishing my degree in education. I want to become a teacher for deaf and hard of hearing kids. My best friend has been deaf since childhood, and we met in a sign language class when we were teenagers. She's one of the few people who truly gets what it's like to live between the hearing and deaf worlds. We meet every Wednesday at this small cafe downtown. It's nothing fancy, just a place with mismatched chairs and decent coffee. The owner is this sweet older guy who always remembers our usual orders. We've been going there for about 2 years now, and it's become our safe space to catch up. Last Wednesday started like any other. My friend and I grabbed our usual corner table near the window. I ordered my vanilla latte, she got her black coffee, and we settled in for our weekly chat. The cafe was busier than usual, filled with college students, remote workers, and people just killing time. We were talking about her new job when I noticed a woman at a nearby table staring at us. She had this pinched expression on her face. Her son, who looked about 8 years old, was sitting across from her picking at a muffin. I tried to ignore her and focus on what my friend was telling me about her boss. After about 10 minutes, the woman stood up and walked over to our table. She had this fake smile on her face. She asked us if we could stop doing what we were doing. I looked up at her, confused, and asked what she meant. She pointed at our hands and said we were doing some kind of hand thing that was distracting her kid while he was trying to eat. She thought it was rude. I've dealt with ignorant comments before, but it never stops being shocking when people are this blatant about it. I asked her if she meant sign language and she nodded. She went on to explain that our signing looked aggressive to her. She said her son was trying to learn proper manners, and we were confusing him with our behavior. My friend had been watching this whole exchange. She tapped my arm and signed, asking what was happening. I quickly filled her in, and I could see the familiar flash of hurt and anger cross her face. We'd both been through this before, but it never got easier. I took a deep breath and tried to keep my voice level. I suggested that she could teach her son that people communicate in different ways. I told her that would be a great life lesson for him to learn. The woman's fake smile disappeared. She crossed her arms. She told me not to tell her how to raise her child. She called us liberal weirdos and said we thought we could do whatever we wanted wherever we wanted. She complained that some people were trying to raise normal kids. The word normal hit like a slap. My friend reached over and squeezed my hand. She'd read the woman's lips well enough to understand what was happening. I tried to explain that we were just having a conversation and weren't hurting anyone. The woman insisted we were making a scene and that everyone was staring. I looked around the cafe. A few people had looked over when she raised her voice, but most folks were minding their own business. The only person making a scene was her. She launched into a rant about what was wrong with my generation. She said we had no consideration for others. She claimed that, in her day, people knew when to keep their differences to themselves. She was really getting worked up now, her voice getting louder and more shrill. Her poor kid was shrinking down in his seat, clearly embarrassed by his mother's behavior. I tried to explain that we were just trying to enjoy our coffee. I told her that sign language wasn't something we turned on and off, but how we communicated. She shot back that maybe we should learn to communicate like everyone else if we wanted to go out in public. That was it. I tried to be patient and understanding, but I was done. I told her that we had just as much right to be there as she did. I said if she didn't like it, she was welcome to leave. Her mouth fell open. She demanded to know how I dared speak to her that way. She announced she was a paying customer and threatened to speak to the manager about our harassment. She walked over to the counter where the owner was working. I could see her gesturing wildly and pointing at us. The owner, who knows us well, listened patiently while she ranted. After a few minutes, he walked over to our table. He asked if everything was okay. I told him we were fine and just having our usual conversation. He nodded and looked back at the woman who was still fuming by the counter. He mentioned that she was demanding he kick us out for using sign language. My friend and I exchanged looks. This was about to get interesting. He told us he had told the woman that would be discrimination and probably illegal. He said she didn't like that answer. He walked back to the woman and said something else to her. I couldn't hear exactly what, but I saw her get even angrier. She grabbed her son's hand and started dragging him toward the door. When she left, she announced loudly that the place was going downhill and she would never come back again. The owner calmly replied that was probably for the best. When they were leaving, something amazing happened. The little boy broke free from his mother's grip for just a second and turned back to us. He raised his hand and gave us a small wave. My friend and I both smiled and waved back. He grinned before his mother yanked him out the door. After they left, the owner came back over with a plate of chocolate chip cookies. He said they were on the house and joked that we were definitely the least weird people he'd had in there that day. The whole cafe had gone quiet during the woman's outburst, but now people were going back to their conversations. A college student at the next table leaned over and apologized that we had to deal with that situation. He mentioned he'd been trying to learn sign language for his little sister, and watching us chat was actually really inspiring. My friend blushed and signed that she'd be happy to help him practice sometime. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.